5, Bianca, what you think?
Yeah, just start.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, an official welcome from our side. From my side, my name is Sebastian Frisch. I'm working for BlackForest Solutions. I'm your moderator for today's session. As mentioned before, this session is part of the Cambodian Waste Summit 2020. We actually had several sessions the whole week. This event is organized by the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and by GIZ. So first of all, before we go into the session, I would like everyone to please mute the microphone during the presentations when we have a speaker. And also please turn off your video so that we can use the full speed of the internet when we are not speaking. And also please be informed that we are recording this session. I hope this is okay for everyone. So I would like to give the first word to Bianca Unti, please, to also give us a bit of a background of this whole summit and especially of this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. So I think all the participants, they already know me, actually, having a look at the participants list. But again, on behalf of German Development Corporation, GIZ, and the German Business Group, I would like to welcome you to our last session. As Sebastian mentioned, it's the last session of the Waste Summit, and we are very grateful that Konrad Adenauer Foundation and COMPET, which are the main organizers of the Waste Summit, gave us the opportunity to host several sessions, and we called it European Circular Economy Business Panel and Matchmaking event. Not only because I'm German, but because German is actually the world market leader when it comes to recycling technologies. We've organized this panel, and it's meant as an ideas generator. We would like to stay in touch with you, with the different stakeholders, and connect Cambodian stakeholders with German and other European companies. During the last sessions, we already learned a lot about different technologies, approaches, and I'm very much convinced that some of them still might be very sophisticated in the Cambodian context, and it will take like 10 to 15 years to see them here. But I'm very curious about the digital tools that will be presented right now. Cambodians are digital natives, and I think it's a very interesting topic. So thank you very much for organizing the event, to BlackForest Solutions. Thank you very much to the speakers and to the participants.
Thank you, Bianca. And then without losing time, I would already ask Joel to start his presentation, please. So Joel Tasche is the founder and managing director of Cleanhub. And Cleanhub is developing and providing digital solutions in the field of circular economy. And by the way, we had over the whole week, we had several questions regarding the informal sector, especially in Cambodia, right? Where you have a very strong informal sector. And also our answers were normally that the informal sector can be involved and can be made formal through digital solutions. Here I'm really curious what Cleanhub can present here in this sense. Thank you. The floor is yours, Joel.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody from Berlin. Unfortunately, usually my job would also be to be somewhere in Asia because we're currently operating in India and Indonesia, but we are also looking at other countries because our model in its core, as Sebastian said, is digital. We on purpose built it as a digital solution because we wanted to use digitization also to find a model that might scale.
Now you can cook.
That stands the chance to scale. And I will quickly take you through our journey, because I'm very honored to be here today and to be presenting, because exactly 1 year ago we were basically finishing up our research in India, and yeah, so it's been a wild year for us. We are still a startup, but had some success over the year. And basically what we observed is that everybody by now is aware of plastic pollution in the oceans, especially in Europe and the US. The awareness among the consumers is rising tremendously. We have more and more brands that are built around not using plastic, that are built around using recycled plastic to serve, yeah, exactly myself, basically the millennials. The studies show that millennials are twice as likely to buy sustainable products. The sustainably marketed products grow 7 times faster than their competitors. And we saw this also as a great opportunity to create a cross-financing between brands and the places where the money is actually needed to build the infrastructure, to build the processes to really avoid plastic entering the oceans in the first place. So during our research, what we observed is the following. Plastic itself and the industry likes to say that plastic is valuable. I think this is true for certain kinds of plastic, especially for those kinds of plastic, and this is where it proves to be true, where they can be recycled. And this is also what we saw in India, that especially PET, HDPE, certain types of LDPE were collected. And if you entered the streets in the morning at 10 in India, you wouldn't find a plastic bottle on the street. What you would find and left behind is exactly this kind of non-valuable plastic, or especially the plastic that can't be recycled, multi-layer packaging, flexible packaging, or that are at least difficult to recycle. I think everything can be recycled somehow, but all those little pouches, people don't collect them. And that's for a very simple reason. It's because the value is less than the actual cost that you have to recover the plastic. So there's a gap that needs to be filled. This gap usually should be filled by EPR programs. And since this is not the case in many countries, we see that 80% of plastic that enters the oceans is actually non-valuable, is not recyclable. That comes from a recent study conducted by Systemic. And this is exactly the kind of material that we said we need to focus on if we want to have an impact. So yeah, I mean, the problems of it, I think everybody is aware of them. Since this plastic can't be recycled, it remains uncollected and it pollutes the environment. There's no investment or very little investment into the recycling technology, because the feedstock is also not delivered to those plants, because nobody is currently collecting it. And the third point, that there's very little collection. There's also no real plastic disposal infrastructure. So overall, the market has almost no incentive for sustainable plastic collection and also for the sustainable disposal of it. What we did is we started to talk to recycling companies, and I will come to the informal sector also in a second. This is Shrikant. He's an LDPE recycler from India, one of our first partners. He's running the recycling unit in the second generation, and they turn those little milk pouches into hoses for agriculture. That's one of their products. They are located directly next to the Krishna River. And his biggest challenge is he's buying material from the informal sector. So he's buying the LDPE pouches, but at the same time, they deliver him a lot of multi-layer packaging. So when he buys 1 ton of LDPE scrap, so to say, from the market, 20 to 30% of material that he buys is reject material that he can't use. And then the other point is that his technology that he's using is also not at par with the international standards to really sell his resin on an international market. That leads to the fact that the capacity that he has is only running at roughly 60%. What we're doing with him now is, or I can also get into that a bit later, because there's more cases like that we've seen. Take you to the next step. This is a company from Indonesia, Treaty Oasis. It's founded by Dian and Dinda. They are recycling PET, and again, they are facing the same problem. They're getting a lot of reject material that they can't use. They don't know what to do with it, and they say, look, it's not a problem to collect multi-layer packaging, but we don't know what to do with it. The same thing we saw in Sri Lanka. This is another project that we're looking into. This is a completely waste management distant project, so to say. He runs a zero waste surf camp in a very remote village in Sri Lanka, and he doesn't know what to do with the waste either. So they do regular beach cleanups. They collect the waste from the locals, from the households, and then they have all the waste in their camp, but again, they don't know what to do with it. And the only solution that is usually available is some kind of unmanaged or unsanitized landfill, unless they would spend a lot of money to have the material be transported back to Colombo. So everybody faces the same problems, that they have a lot of plastic waste that they have no use for because it just can't be recycled. And this is, I think, also the structural problem when we look at waste management in overall. So what we also learned during our research is that plastic pollution is usually the strongest where you also have the strongest growth in population. And one industry that's always there when population is growing strongly is the cement industry. And they can use especially this plastic waste as fuel for their kilns. They can replace coal and gas with it. And actually it also produces a lower carbon footprint during the production than when using coal and gas. So you can turn this problem into an opportunity, basically. And still we have the problem. What we told all these partners that we have is like, look, we're gonna buy this material from you and we're gonna deliver it to the cement industry. But what we also found out is with the cement industry, you also need to pay them money to accept this material because they need to pre-process the material, they need to turn it into the fuel, and then in the end, it costs you around $350 to collect all this waste to have it pre-processed, to have it transported. And we said, okay, this is a bad business model. if we have to pay $350 for every ton of plastic waste that we collect through our sources. And what we did in the next step is we started talking to exactly those sustainable brands that are out there that are marketing themselves as sustainable. And we said, you can support the fight against plastic pollution, the fight against plastic in the marine ecosystem, if you take responsibility for someone else's waste and you can use it in your marketing. And the feedback was, yes, that's interesting. They understand this part, that it has no value and that someone needs to pay for it. At the same time, they said, it's like, who's going to guarantee me that the partners that you have on the ground will actually collect all this waste? And that if I pay money to India, or if I pay money also to Cambodia or to Sri Lanka, that something really happens to this money. So what is my impact? And this is something that we are now solving through technology, where we say, okay, we have to track the whole value chain from the collection to the final disposal. And this is exactly what we did. So we had the disposal chains in place in India and Indonesia. And we partnered up with Geocycle, which is the waste management arm of Lafarge Holcim, which are very active or used to be very active in Asia. They're very active in India still, and Bangladesh. And the other company that we're working with is Heidelberg Cement, more specifically Indo Cement for Indonesia. And we are really now tracking the whole value chain. So at the beginning of the chain, we have a company somewhere in Germany that says, I want to become plastic neutral. I want to use this for my marketing. They pay us, and in return, we give the contract to our partners on the ground. And now this is not really how it's looking like. So we're not really sponsoring beach cleanups, but we're sponsoring door-to-door collection of waste in India specifically. And the partners start to collect the plastic waste, and at every single step in the value chain. So when it comes to the sorting station, they need to weigh the material, and that way we know where the waste was collected, who was collecting it, and how much of the waste was collected. And they need to upload a constant stream of pictures to deliver the proof of work. And in the final step, once the material is loaded on the truck to go to the cement industry, we also register that truck once it leaves and once it arrives at the cement industry. And from the cement companies, we get the final weigh-in slip as well, that contains several information that allows us to double check if the work that was done before is actually the work that these people said they were doing. So we get the ash content, which is a great indicator for where the material comes from, if it comes from a landfill, if it comes from the streets, if it comes from a household collection. And we get the moisture content, which allows us to really calculate how much plastic was actually disposed of. And this allows us to issue a credit that we can pay back to the initial sponsor here in step one. And this way we create enough transparency to finance this whole system, or that people are willing to invest into the system. Now, how does the informal sector play into this? The collection points that I showed you earlier, so for example, Shrikant, and also the company in Indonesia that we're working with, they are now saying, okay, I have a completely new waste stream that I can manage here. And I know that I get a certain amount of money for this waste stream. Now the question is, how can I monetize this for myself? And then it's basically the same as for all other waste streams, for PET, for HDPE. They are opening a new product category, and that means the informal sector can start supplying to them as well. And this is what we're currently working on. We have one specific project in India that we're starting, where we want Shrikant to really employ the informal sector and give them health insurance, give them proper safety gear, because we know, and we also want that certain safeguards in place, because else, A, you can't sell the credit to a European-based company that's going to run a due diligence on the supply chain, and B, it's just really the right thing to do. I mean, everybody deserves to be in a dignified job, to work in a dignified level of employment. And by opening up the capacity of the cement industry, and by finding the right sponsors to pay for such a system, we are basically building a voluntary EPR system that is 100% traceable. And yeah, this is mostly what we've been doing over the past years. We now sold the first 100 tons to Germany. We have 4 collection partners on the ground. We have the partnerships with the cement industry, and we are now in the first projects really creating jobs that are not informal anymore, but that are moving into a dignified employment, into dignified employment contracts. And at the same time, we really, at least in our opinion, put the money where it has the biggest impact, especially because we're focusing on non-recyclable material. So in the end, as a summary, everybody profits, because for the locals, we bring the economics for waste management, and we help them to build the infrastructure that is needed to handle the plastic pollution in their places. For the environment, we're having a good impact, because more plastic is collected, or at least we make the plastic valuable enough that theoretically 100% of the plastic waste stream can be collected and can be properly disposed of. And the sponsors are also happy because they have a strong value proposition towards their customers. Yeah, and I mean, in the end, we're also working towards the Sustainable Development Goals by really enabling sustainable business models around waste management, which goes into decent work and economic growth. We empower the local communities to handle their own waste independently without someone else coming in. We're just creating a market for them basically, and thus help to build sustainable cities and communities and industry and innovation and infrastructure. And at the same time, and this our very intrinsic motivation is to save the ecosystems and food chains of the country where we're active. So that goes into life below water and life on land. Yeah, and this is it from my side. I'm not sure if there's going to be a round for questions or how you usually do it.
Yeah, so there is a round of questions, and I've not seen one question from the chat yet. I don't know if the audience has already some questions. If not, I would have a couple. So, here we are. So Katrin Eitel, Joel asked, how do you think you may include waste pickers and intermediaries in your digital system when they do not have access to the internet, as it is often the case in Cambodia? And further, can you imagine a model where the informal sector, the waste pickers, are not hired by another actor, but where they are self-employed?
We are currently working on a pilot where we have registered. So again, through these little hubs that we're building, through formal recycling companies, what we're doing there is, if they say that there's an informal waste picker, so to say, we still connect them, so to say. So what they get from us is a little credit card with a QR code on it, where we store the information about them in the background, so we know who they are. And this way they can still register themselves with the respective hub. One issue that we do see is payment. We are working, or we are currently looking into different payment methods. I think this is always hyper local. We have to see how this can be rolled out. Currently, since we are still at a relatively small scale, we work on a trust basis, where the money that we paid forward is then paid directly to the informal sector. But this is the bigger issue that we still see. But there is already technology out there. If you look into the blockchain space, there are ways to transfer money, but this always needs to be adjusted to the local context.
So Fatima is asking, with using the plastics and cement production for construction, do you see the sector being affected by economic shocks such as COVID's impact, for example? And how would you pivot to adapt to that if that is the case?
Cement is not, or okay, maybe the CEOs of LafargeHolcim would not agree with it. They are obviously impacted by COVID. At the same time, they are still running at quite good capacity. So in India, the plants are still open. The worst thing that can happen to an industrial size plant is to stop production. This is when they are losing the most money, and especially in the countries where we are active, they still rely on a lot of fossil fuels, because the waste management is not as managed, so to say, as we have it, for example, in Germany, where those plants run at almost 90% pure waste. So we are currently not running into capacity problems. I'm not sure if this goes into the question or into the direction that the question was intended.
Right. If you have further questions, Fatima. Okay, she said yes. And then Katrin Eitel, I try to ask the other way around. What would you do if the informal sector is not willing to get hired and search for other jobs where they can work self-employed?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, they can still remain self-employed, right? That's not a problem. They can still drop off the material that, like, it works like a waste bank, but the only thing that we're doing is we're opening up another waste stream at the waste bank. So they can remain self-employed. The only thing that we ask is that we know who it is, because else we can't guarantee compliance anymore.
Right. Okay. Also, I would have a question in regards to how is this related to EPR, Joel? So we also had one day earlier this week where we had one session about the extended producer responsibility. And how is this linked? And could you explain how, for example, plastic neutrality works for companies? What is the interest of the people, of the companies who are actually buying these offsetting certificates?
Mm-hmm. Yes. If we look at our customer base, for example, we mostly work with cosmetic brands, and up to this date, a lot of them are relying on plastic as a packaging material. In other industries, like for example, food, you're not even allowed to use recycled materials. And what we see there, the consumers don't like the fact that they have to put their materials into plastic. At the same time, they brand themselves as highly sustainable, and for them, it's an added value to their value proposition to say, look, I know about the impact that I have on the planet. At the same time, I do want to take responsibility, and Cleanup allows me to do that. Cleanup allows me to voluntarily take responsibility, and this is what I mentioned earlier when I said this goes towards direction of a voluntary EPR system. So there's demand out there. The companies have to do something. The pressure is immensely increasing here, and I just think it's the most impactful way to spend any kind of marketing dollar, basically, because you're actually doing good and not just putting a claim out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the same. Mm-hmm. And then also, Fatima, could you explain a bit more about what you said about plastic not being valuable? Could the gap between cost and value be something that is addressed by EPR programs? And if so, would the value judgment be different? Would you then collect and recycle?
I think there's a couple of questions in there. This gap that we're closing is exactly the gap that should be closed by EPR, because not all plastic is valuable, and the majority of plastic today actually is not valuable. We would obviously love to recycle, and we are working with recycling companies. That's the one thing. The second thing is that if we increase the recycling rate by 2%, for example, with the same money that we're taking out, for example, 10 tons of, like, just figuratively speaking, we're taking out 10 tons of plastic waste. If we increase the recycling rate by 2%, if we spend the same amount of money on material that today is not at all valuable, that is not at all collected, we can take out a lot more plastic from the system with the same marketing dollar that we have. I'm not sure if that makes sense, because a lot of the plastic actually does have an inherent and a natural value, and we're just really trying to give that part of plastic a value that currently doesn't contain any. I'm not sure if it's a bit confusing.
No, it was clear. So super interesting. Thanks for clarifying. Thank you, Fatima, for your question. And when you're saying plastics are not valuable, or most of them, then we are also talking about, again, this multi-layer packaging. What we had in the session this morning when Christina Jäger from Yunus Environmental Hub was speaking about treating multi-layer packaging in actual treatment facilities. So it's about those waste streams, and as you said, Joel, in your presentation, these are also the plastics or the plastic waste that is left over, right? So the ones that can be recycled, there's already a very efficient system, either formalized or informal system, But what really is the pain for the environment is the multi-layer packaging, and from the food industry, for example. And here, what I understood, Cleanhub is especially targeting this fraction, right?
Yes.
So to clean up there. Yeah.
Very, very degraded plastic. So as soon as plastic is getting in touch with UV light, it starts to degrade. By the way, it also starts to emit methane and ethylene and propylene and all the gases that are included in the plastic, greenhouse gases. And if the material is on the landfills, for example, for too long, it also loses its material properties. So you can't put it through a proper recycling process. It will be, you can downcycle it still, but in many cases, even that is not possible, right? If a recycling company that spends, I don't know, $100 per ton on their plastic waste throws out 30% of what they bought, you really know that this material has no value.
Yeah.
That's the important learning, I think. And at the same time, the systemic impact that we have is, you know, if PET has a value, if HDPE has a value, if LDPE has a value, now if you give all the other plastic waste a value too, it starts to make sense to really do household collections. It starts to make sense to collect from the household, because, you know, every single kilogram of plastic waste that you get can be steered off, has its own way, and you as a collector get money for it.
And this is then a new income stream even. So before it was not collected by the informal sector, and now it can be collected, and it will be paid, and it will be paid by the polluters. So it's a very logical and very fair process, I think. And yeah, and for the follow up, I think also for this presentation here, it's even maybe more easy than for the other participants or speakers in the days before, because it's a digital system. It can be applied anywhere. So as long as there is internet, and in some cases also a smartphone. But you said even without a smartphone, with a QR code, for example, you could also identify the stakeholders in the system. But clearly, as a follow-up, then we could really discuss then how could this work in Cambodia, who could be the users of this, who could be then the stakeholders of such a system. Yeah, so thanks a lot for your time. There's one more question from Katrin. Multi-layered packaging is already collected by the waste pickers. Okay, at least in Cambodia, but it's a good question where it travels to after selling it abroad. Okay. Can you say something about this, Joel, about the multi-layer that is already collected?
Yes, I mean, there's if you look into chemical recycling, for example, they can handle clean feedstock of multi-layer packaging. I don't know to which degree multi-layer packaging is collected in Cambodia. I'm not sure what you mean where it travels to after selling it abroad. Maybe you can clarify on the last point.
You could also open your microphone, Katrin, if you like. Maybe we can have a discussion.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm sorry, my internet access is very, very bad at the moment. So actually I missed your answer, Joel. Maybe you can just repeat it shortly.
I'm not sure what you mean with your last point, but it's a good question where it travels to after selling it abroad. So the informal sector collects it and then sells it abroad, or?
Yeah, exactly. Not directly, but waste pickers sell it and then buy it or collect it, and they sell it to the intermediaries or different depots, and then they sell it abroad, mainly to Vietnam or Thailand. So, but I don't know how and if it gets recycled eventually at those countries abroad. That's a very good question. Just that was on my point for further investigation, maybe.
That would be extremely interesting to see what they actually do with it. There is technology out there, slowly evolving, like delamination plants. Then you have chemical recycling plants, depolymerization, and so on and so forth. But they all rely on a very, very clean feedstock, and also on a feedstock that works at scale, right? So one thing that is also very important to me, we are a neutral platform. So we always try to decide for the best and most sustainable way of disposal or way of recovery, ideally recycling. So we want to follow the waste management hierarchy whenever possible. We are not paid by the cement industry. We do not have investments from the cement industry. We are not married. So if we see a more sustainable way, so to say, to steer off multi-layer packaging, we're also happy to look at other alternatives. And I think what you also need to attract infrastructure investments or building these kind of recycling plants is always feedstock first. You won't make the investment to build a $150 million plant if you cannot rest assured that you will also get the appropriate feedstock.
Right, thank you very, very much, Joel. And looking at the time, sorry, I would really love to speak more about this topic, but time is running. Thanks again, Joel, for your time and for sharing your activities as Cleanhub. And I would like to move now to the next presenter, which is my colleague, actually, Ms. Aurora Rios. I'm just opening the slides. I hope you can see my screen now. And yeah, Ms. Aurora Rios works as a project manager for BlackForest Solutions since about 1 year, and she's also into the project of digitalization and would like to present one project that BlackForest Solutions is actually doing at the moment in that field. The floor is yours, Aurora.
Thank you, Sebastian. Yes, the next one, please. In the next couple of minutes, I'd like to introduce BlackForest really briefly so that you know who we are, where we're coming from, and our background. Then I'll present an example of verification procedures for hazardous waste. The example is based in Germany, but hazardous waste is the same everywhere. It's hazardous everywhere. So the idea would be to take the valuable parts that could be implemented in Cambodia. And then after this, this small case study, then I'll present our project and the credit offsetting possibilities that it entails. So short about BlackForest, we're a consultancy based in Berlin. Our specialization is in waste management, hazardous and non-hazardous. So for trading and operations, this is mostly hazardous waste related. So our team goes on site and performs sampling to analyze what type of materials and substances are present. And then we look for the adequate final recovery facility or final disposal site. And then we also coordinate the transboundary movement according to the Basel Convention, which is usually shipment. And on the completely other side, we perform consultancy for here a lot more varied topics. So anything from a medical waste plant to biological waste treatment and composting, or recently very much so on EPR and plastics, marine litter pollution, and development of plans for this implementation. So going on to the digital waste verification procedure, this is relatively new actually for, or compared to other environmental legislation and approaches in Germany. It was made mandatory in 2010. And it's a tracking system. So the idea is that every hazardous waste generator will be registered in the system, and that all stakeholders then access the platform as well and can see the intermediate steps of the transport of this hazardous waste. So from generation point, everybody who is involved in the chain. This also, or it's important to say, this was not implemented from one day to the other. It was not spontaneous. It was a phased approach, and it was first tested here in Berlin and in one of the surrounding states. And after success, it was then expanded to the rest of the country and the other states. Next slide, please. So this coordination is performed by the ZKS, so the Central Coordination Unit, which is then responsible for the implementation. And this is then yeah, the centralized approach. So nationwide, everybody is under this umbrella. And just as a number, this is a yearly statistic from 2019. Although the trend in average in the European Union in general is that the amount of hazardous waste production is increasing. This is just an overview. So these disposal certificates are the last step of the process. That is when the process is ended, and over 150,000 were issued. But as you see, the intermediate steps have been millions, and the consignment bills or Begleitscheine, these accompanying notes, were also in the million number. Here you see an example. It's unfortunately in German, but in principle, what you see is the minimum information that should accompany hazardous waste at all times. So it's important to say what type of waste it is. The European Waste Catalog has around 400 hazardous waste types, and then according to this nomenclature, this document would be issued. In the case of Cambodia, for example, the UN nomenclature could be adopted as well. As long as it's harmonized, it's really open. The amount then is to be stated, tons or cubic meters. This is of course depending on the type of waste reported, if it is liquid or solid. And then the contact detail, you see these three columns, and all three parties is meant, so the producer, the transporter, and the final disposal operator. So their contact information needs to be there, as well as, and this is important, the dates in which everything is to happen, so that there's an actual tracking of where the materials are. And well, it's not as complicated. So the background of this is, it used to be analog. So really these papers that I'm sure everybody has seen once, where one writes upon, and there's this carbon paper that immediately makes a copy. This was the system before, and in order to make this more efficient, then it was shifted to the digital version of it all. But it is not anything particularly sophisticated. So anybody with a computer, or any producer, any company with a computer with internet access, can then register at the central unit, and all three parties have electronic signatures. There's a chip card reader, and that's basically it. So it's not as tricky to join or to be part of the system. And being that it is mandatory, then it is also fair to make it as easy as possible for all the users. Next slide, please. So far, or 2 points that I would really like to highlight is that there was a pilot phase, or that there was a phased approach before it became mandatory. This is perhaps a good way to go, and would be advisable in Cambodia, but also elsewhere, to allow for some transition, and the flexibility to use the own software. So this system offers one platform, one software type that everyone registered can and is free to use. But if the users choose to, they can develop their own software and work with it, or choose a supplier that is allowed by the central control, and then operate with it. So there's, I mean, there's a balance of this very strict, very defined mandatory framework. But there's some room for flexibility in it. So the steps, step one actually would be the prior check. First, before anything happens, it needs to be known what type of material or substance one is dealing with. So is it allowed at the facility intended or not? Asbestos containing material might be, or because of the different landfill types. So there needs to be a prior check to know is it possible and legal at all to dispose of these substances as we're thinking about it. Then the next step, step 2, would be this Begleitschein, this little form is issued once all the approval requirements are met. And this helps to know where the materials is at all time, and very importantly, who is responsible for them in case there would be an accident or a delay. It's important to know at all times who is in custody of the waste, of the hazardous waste, for not only for protecting the environment, but also protecting people involved and who work in close contact with this material. And then the final step is the final check, this disposal progress. Once the waste is transferred to the final recovery or the final disposal site, this is documented and this is registered, and the record is kept for a couple of years. It's 3 at the moment. So all in all, as you can, or what is relevant then is to observe aspects of the system that are convenient and some that are, that have some area of opportunity if they were to be implemented elsewhere. So of course, with anything digital, there is a risk of attacks or security breaches or a system failure, but this is not inherent to this manifest system itself. This is true for any digital framework. The second point is probably also, or one of the big ones, it's initially time consuming to shift or to implement any system, really. So the electronic signature might take some time adjusting to if this is not already in place in the firm. And of course, the staff needs to be trained. So how to use the software, how to manage the login, yes, this is an initial time that needs to be calculated, and a small room for error. Then this happened in Germany in the past, that this flexible software that I mentioned before, providers of the software alternative to the ones offered by the central unit can leave the market, and then, well, of course, this whole process of introducing the system in the firm would need to be repeated, and data transfer and so on. And the last point is mobile internet challenge. So for the transportation and the on-site and the real-time tracking of the movement, the chip card reading needs to be an option. So the solution is to have a mobile solution on the vehicles transporting or handling otherwise the waste. So on the bright side, what is valuable and what could be taken to be implemented in Cambodia is this whole standardization approach. The fact that all authorities and producers communicate in, so to speak, the same language and are part of a unified database and system. Of course, with everything being digital, the speed of the process and the updating of the information is performed in a much quicker manner. And through this, there is an inventory achieved nationwide. This is the case, or this has been the case in many of our experiences, that there is no real knowledge of who is producing what type of hazardous waste where. So the approach, being it mandatory, this is a tackled obstacle, so to speak. Then obviously the control of the location of the materials is known. And to this goes also who is responsible for it at all times. And then all of these information is documented. And the last point is, even if the system is mandatory, and in Cambodia, if it were to be implemented in a similar way, then there should, or it's recommendable to allow some flexibility or some adaptation time for it. Okay, so these have been the most relevant points I'd like to highlight. And then now in the last few minutes, I'll present the project that Sebastian mentioned before. So also Joel and the participants touched upon this topic before, the informal sector and their role in the whole chain. So now I'm stepping a bit away from hazardous waste and going more into plastics, and that is the focus of our project. Well, the idea, or obviously nobody picks waste for fun. This is rather a source of income that is an alternative where very few others are available. And well, plastics, as we said before, it was one of the questions, they don't always have an intrinsic value. So mostly pickers focus on PE or PP, PT, because these are thermoplastics that are melted and after a certain process can be turned again into a product rather easily. But materials like multi-layered packaging, like chips, bags, or shampoo bottles or containers with different parts are not easily recyclable, if at all. And then this means that they are not picked and either end up at a landfill in the best case, or are littered or burnt. And if not, or the way they end up at the landfill is private users have to finance this privately if their municipality is not taking care of this. And there is no other source to finance this, no EPR framework behind it, as we've just discussed. Next slide, please. So in this context, or observing this situation, we see, or we come across several attempts and many initiatives that are taking on this challenge, this obstacle, especially for MLP and harder to treat materials. EPR might be a tool to obtain funding from producers. And in order to do this, it should be a process that is transparent and replicable and that can be assessed, and the services can be evaluated. So there is no point in saying, okay, 100 tons of waste have been treated if the treatment itself meant they were burnt or they were dumped in a landfill. Or for social standards, if child labor is involved, or forced labor, or there is no personal protective equipment being used, and so on. So in order to contemplate these and other aspects, the concept of these credits or certificates that offset plastic by firms could be issued. And the benefits are obvious. So there would be, if they wish so, some formalization of pickers involved, and very importantly, documentation of amounts involved while ensuring compliance with certain standards. So this is the core of our project to, next slide please. Yeah, to prove the concept in a standardized manner, and then really test this interface of a software that will then observe all these aspects and be replicable. So similar to the Kyoto Protocol's carbon trading mechanism, this could be then done for waste and for plastics, but from a very holistic perspective that is harmonized and that means the same things for everybody in different parts of the world. That is the main concept.
Thank you very much, Aurora. It's again a new perspective also on the system of digital waste management, and we learned also about the history. So it is available since 2010. You said not so long, but for a digital time, it's quite long already, right? So for 10 years, and it's also the whole system is not really rocket science. So this is all using known IT technology, and that's why also rather accessible. I've not seen any questions now in the chat, and also looking now at the time, I would propose that we already go straight to the next presentation, unless someone has an urgent question about the presentation that we've just seen. If that's not the case, then I would like to welcome Mr. Matteo Chiampo, the Managing Director from the Circular Initiative and SecondMuse. And he will also explain his view and his work on digitalization that can be helpful for better waste management, especially, I think, in this presentation also about marine litter. The floor is yours, Matteo.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, and thank you all. Thank you, the participant. Thank you for having us here. It's a great opportunity actually to introduce. I'm going to spend a few minutes to introduce what we do as the incubation network, because I think it will really help understand and coordinate. We've seen many different topics, many different initiatives in the space. And you'll see how the incubation network is really trying to position itself in the region as a kind of a glue and coordinator and a network to enhance and really support all these initiatives. Next slide, please. So in a very short way, the incubation network exists to catalyze solutions to end ocean plastic pollution, and we work at the systems level. So we understand that this is a really crucial problem. Improving waste management and specifically reducing plastic pollution in the ocean cannot be solved or addressed only by the private sector or only by the public sector, by governments or municipalities. There's really a need to work together at a systems level and bring different stakeholders together. And that's exactly what the incubation network does. The incubation network is a multi-year, multi-million-dollar program, fully funded through a set of very important partners that you can see pasted on the screen there. Some are from the private sector, again, some are national governments. They are basically taking a stand and saying, look, let's go out and by taking this systems approach to a collaborative innovation, find ways to improve the waste management system and plastic recycling in South and Southeast Asia, which, as we have heard several times today, is where 2/3 of plastic pollution enters the waterways and the ocean. The incubation network's mission is really with those resources to support and stimulate innovation, early stage entrepreneurship, and build an ecosystem that will create several opportunities for new companies to scale, for new partnerships to be formed between the public and the private sector, eventually with the final objective, which is in our theory of change, to reduce or eliminate plastic pollution in the ocean, while at the same time improving livelihoods for marginalized groups working in the waste system, especially focusing on women and girls. So you see there are these two really complementary objectives. And as we have seen and we heard today during the other presentation, there is always this element of informal sector that needs to be brought in into the waste management. They are absolutely fundamental. They are at the basis, at the foundation of the waste management system in the region, and therefore we need to bring their voice in. Next slide, please, Sebastian. So those are the three pillars. As I said, our work revolves around cooperatively supporting and scaling ventures, innovation, very much on the early stage of the life cycle. Our partners from Circular Capital, for instance, looks after later stage ventures. So those who are graduating from our early stage support and are able to absorb larger amount of funds in the millions of dollars through Series A or Series B. 3D Oasis, which was mentioned by Joel just a few minutes ago, is in fact one of the recipients of investment from Circular Capital down in Indonesia. We also catalyze new market. This is a theme that has been recurring across all the presentations today. We understand that certain plastic materials, waste plastic materials, don't have a value. What does it mean? It means that demand and supplies are off balance. It means that there is not enough visibility on the supply chain, on the feedstock. which then creates the effect of not having capital deployed to create recycling plants, and the whole system, the whole market doesn't take off. So we really want to work with the different stakeholders to find ways to create market, to stimulate markets. How do we work with off-takers? How do we work with brands that need to comply with specific targets in recycled material content? How do we work with them to create markets, including the informal sector, so that there is a consistent and predictable flow of material? How do we improve on transactions? How do we open up visibility on the cost price across the value chain? And so we really create labs, and we support and finance projects to actually make experiments in this area. And then finally, our objective is to, with all this work that we do, to really create several knowledge assets that are then put back into the market and made available to the members of the network in order to basically share the knowledge and the insights that we have gained. Next slide, please. Operationally, the way we work is, as you can imagine, kind of creating programs. And in the past few months, we've already been on the market and in the region with several programs. One is that I can bring as an example is the Plastics Data Challenge. So about a year ago, when we started kind of looking at the space, we created a pilot project in Surabaya, East Java in Indonesia, really to understand the overall system in that waste shed and how all the players would interact. And one of the strong messages that we got from the pilot in there, from the pilot project there, was in fact that there was an almost absolute lack of data across the entire system. Quantity of material, type of phrases, price points, leakage points, all of that was either temporarily stored on, say, paper, on scrap of paper, and then disposed of or just kept for archiving, but there wasn't really any way to actively use this data. And so we came up with we put our resources behind that. And we went out and created this challenge where with 3 challenge statements, we went out to the great minds of the world and say, telling them, look, you are working on this specific problem, come to us and we will offer you support to actually refine your idea and adapt your innovative ideas to solve, using data, solve the problem of, or part of the problem of waste management and plastic recycling in South and Southeast Asia. And we'll be able to offer you also the ability to deploy your innovative ideas on a pilot project that we have available in the region. This has been incredibly successful. We received more than 200 submissions. We shortlisted 25, and eventually 10 of those shortlisted initiatives have been supported through a multi-week program with mentorship, with technical assistance, and also, of course, with financial assistance in the form of prize money and grants. And eventually, after the program ended, they were able to deploy their innovation on the ground. Next slide, please. So for instance, some of the innovation that came out of the Plastic Data Challenge and other of our program are kind of bucketized into, say, 3 categories. We've seen plastic reduction, we've seen collection and aggregation solution, we've seen end-of-life solution. So again, we cover the entire spectrum. We support innovation across the entire spectrum. Obviously, so for the plastic reduction part, it's very important for us to highlight that our objective is, we know that the problem of plastic pollution in the ocean will not be solved by collecting more plastic. So especially in this region, this is not a problem that will be solved with mechanization and industrialization of waste collection and waste management. It's very important. So that's kind of the immediate highest leverage point. And that's why we are working there. We are supporting that area. But sooner or later, we'll need to kind of find solutions to reduce the entry of materials in the system. How do we create new business models, new delivery models? How do we avoid creating basically a piece of waste every time a product, an SKU of product is moved? And so we see some innovation there. Company in Indonesia called Cyclus is basically trying to solve that nasty problem of multi-layer plastic, the sachet problem, which creates environmental issues that we heard repeatedly in the past few hours, as well as what is called a poverty premium. So the buyer of those products are actually paying per gram or per kilogram of product a much higher price because the product is sold in smaller quantity, and therefore the packaging cost and the distribution cost in percentage is much higher. So Cyclus is creating a distribution system where basically going through the back alleys in low-income areas of Indonesian cities, they're basically bringing the product to the doorstep of the household. The household person will go out on the street. There is an app, of course, to indicate where the distribution cart is. And with the old bottles of shampoo, empty bottles of other products, they will be able to basically refill, use, wash, refill, use, wash, therefore reducing the amount of plastic that is put in circulation. Growing plastic is another innovator that came through our Circular Innovation Jam, which is a very early stage ideathon that we just concluded few weeks ago. And they are basically looking at waste streams like banana peels that are produced in large quantity in Indonesia because banana chips, fried banana chips, are a very popular snack. And they are using this, and they developed a process by which, using banana peels, they are aiming to replace bubble wrap for packaging of products and goods being shipped, say, for instance, by e-commerce company. So really a lot of kind of innovation. End of Life, another company that we just supported recently and won the Circular Innovation Jam, is Red Bricks, again out of Indonesia. What they are doing, they are embedding multi-layer plastic and low-value plastic, exactly the one that we've heard over and over again is difficult to recycle, doesn't have a value, is easily dispersed in the environment. Take that and embed it into long-lived products like construction products, like tilers and construction blocks. By doing that, there is an advantage because there is less use of expensive material like cement and sand, while at the same time blocking this plastic waste for the long term in construction materials. Next slide, please. Many other innovation, even from Cambodia. We've seen a company called Luma System developing image recognition and machine learning and artificial intelligence at position of waste bins, optimizing the collection routes, understanding the size of the roads to basically optimize the type of truck that can follow a specific route, and even identifying type of materials or type of waste, both for compliance and enforcement reasons, as well as for understanding the value and the quantity of the material. So just to summarize this section, we really see a lot of opportunity for us, for the incubation network, to support waste value chain at the system level, coordinating innovation, working with the informal sector, which is really a crucial stakeholder in the system, and we want to support it, to the risk innovation and to improve the value across the value chain. And then finally, really exploring financing mechanisms that provide capital in an environment where there is really a need to blend capital between philanthropic and commercial capital. Next slide, please. And just to conclude, I want to kind of bring some of these examples to life, making it. It's late on Friday night. Everybody had a week of Zoom sessions, so I just want to bring to life a few examples, hopefully, to really give you a sense of what is happening on the ground and how the digitalization of the informal sector can bring great benefit. One of these examples is a company we've interacted with in the past year or so, called Cabalivalla Connect. They operate out of Chennai in India. And really their objective is to formalize the informal sector through digital tools. They have a complete suite of products. They go from smart bins with sensors to understand the level of how full the bin is, all the way to, as you can see in the image here, digitizing the moment of transaction between the actual waste picker and the small aggregator, where using a Bluetooth-enabled scale and a tablet, which again is in the hands of the small aggregator shop, they are able to start capturing from the point of generation data on type of materials, quantity, and price paid. So integrating from the beginning information in the overall life of these materials. Next slide, please. But their objective is larger. They really want to kind of, once again, cover the entire system end to end to the benefit of, say, for instance, large off-takers that need to have visibility and traceability of the material provenance, as well as some level of consistency around material input. And so through all of this system, they really benefit the digitization of this process really goes to benefit the informal sector that is not informal anymore, but becomes a fundamental constituent in the overall value chain of waste management. So this is a great example of how technology really is working to bring informal sector into the formal and basically turn that into one other key player into this complex system. Next slide, please, Sebastian. Second case study that I want to mention is SweepSmart. Again, out of India. They started out as a company that really was more in the kind of creating properly functioning sorting center, material MRFs. And you can see that they have kind of quite a bit of mechanical and construction work to create proper proper situation for material sorting. But if you switch to the next slide, what they've learned through operating these centers was really that once again, there was a complete dearth of data. There was absolutely no information. So there was always a reactive approach to materials coming in. There was no possibility to actually pre-advise down the line buyers, for instance, of the materials that were coming down the line. It was really a kind of flying blind type of situation. So what they done, they started developing on top of their mechanical systems, they started developing a layer of digital tools, like a full dashboard that allows them to track from the collection, where they actually developed and prototyped a scale that is basically hang on to the three-wheeler that goes through the Indians, in this case Bangalore city street, collecting waste, to once again start the digitization of the information from the very beginning, to become more proactive, to provide real-time information, to have full data tracking of the information. Once again, this kind of creates two benefits for the informal sector worker. On the one side, a much cleaner and much healthier work environment for the waste segregators, and on the other side, the ability to really reap the benefit and being included if there is a benefit to be had by picking waste. That benefit should also be shared with the informal waste sector. I think, Aurora, you mentioned that nobody picks waste for fun, and that's absolutely correct. And so how do we bring back value to the informal workers? So this is really it from our side. We support innovators, and we develop ecosystem, providing technical assistance, mentorship, financial support. We invite submission of project proposals that we evaluate and finance in case there are opportunities, in case they are aligned with the objectives of the incubation network. What I would warmly suggest you all to do is to visit our website, www.incubationnetwork.com, and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We have several new initiatives that are coming down the line in the next 6 and 9 months. So signing up to the newsletter will keep you all up to date, and we would love to interact and collaborate with as many players as possible in the space. We are really there to create a collaborative environment to make sure that innovation and better management of waste and plastic recycling and inclusion of the informal sector increases in the region for the benefit of all. And thank you very much.
And thank you, Matteo. That was also very great. Thanks for this insight, and also what you see in the field. Actually, I have here one question from Katrin Eitel, Matteo. Katrin is wondering if you would extend the hub of initiatives by local Cambodian initiatives that bring in local specific knowledge, for example, in the category of plastic reduction. Or how do you like to adapt your model to the local situation in Cambodia?
Absolutely. So actually, our model is entirely localized. We have we manage the entire program from Singapore, where I'm sitting right now, but we rely almost exclusively for site work on local partners. We call them entrepreneurial support organization, ESOs. So these are typically accelerator or incubators that have already an interest in circularity, in sustainability, or in social impact, and want to kind of enter and see this market as a potential viable market, like from a market perspective. And so we work with them, with several of them, in fact, more than 40 in the region. And we would love to kind of hear about opportunities to collaborate with local Cambodian organizations. They are the ones that really bring the depth of connections and network and expertise on the ground. They understand what needs to be done. We provide support at a higher level for their programs. We also take in projects. Say we are supporting an innovation, an open innovation challenge called Waste 2020 here in Singapore, where from worldwide there have been several submissions of technology to solve 3 specific problems related to waste management in Singapore. And so Cambodia, we had several submissions from Cambodia as well, and we would love to kind of hear about opportunities to partner and to support projects there as well.
Thank you very much. All right, Matteo. Then I would say we are also in touch, of course, for the follow-up. And I hope that we also will reach a time where we can travel again, and that we can maybe meet in Singapore, or when you have a chance to come to Cambodia, and then also to meet live and in person. Thank you again. I would like to hand over to our next speaker, our last speaker, Mr. Eric Schaffner. He's the founder and CEO of the company Zeloop. And he developed an application that has, again, a bit of a different angle on how to deal or what to offer with digital projects in waste management. It's really a unique application, and I'm very glad that he accepted our invitation to this summit. Thank you, Eric, and the floor is yours.
My pleasure, Sebastian. Thank you very much for inviting us, and I'm glad to take part of this event. So if you can go to the next slide. Today we produce more waste than we can treat, so it goes to landfill or nature. And one of the solutions that we hear often is setting circular economies. But if you study a potential circular economy, if the industry is very good at delivering products to consumer, and large companies are handling waste as a resource with efficiency to be improved, we saw that a lot in the summit. But who is really taking care of the consumer is something actually we haven't heard much on the journey to the last 5 days. That is the missing link. What about the consumer? They're also part of a potential circular economy. Next slide, please. So that's where we have positioned Zeloop. That's what we had in mind by creating Zeloop, is to close the loop by involving consumers using mechanisms that can motivate them to participate in recycling. And mechanism then has to be rewarding. It has to be scalable everywhere. It has to be easy to access, and obviously we want to have fun to do so. If you go to the next slide, thank you. Studies shows that 3 levers work very well to engage consumer. First, provide social recognition, especially with millennials. You know, if you are not on social media, you are nobody. The second element is gamification, and gamification is applying mechanism that we normally see in video games, but we apply them to real topics in order to play on our inner competitive behavior. The last element is give reward. Consumer will always give, and study shows that clearly, give preference to application brands that give them something in return. Next slide. Now, let's see a practical example on plastic waste, which is the theme also of the summit. Obviously, plastic pollution is highly visible to regulators, to consumers. We see more and more new regulation coming, whether is it ban, EPR's deposit scheme. Why consumers express louder their concern. You see that 2/3 even believe that we are heading on an environmental disaster. To the next slide. So to curb down plastic littering, we have launched a gamified mobile application. We use the phone because today more and more everybody has a phone. Is often the first commodity electronic appliance that people will buy once they have access to a bit of purchasing power. People like games also, they like to compete. So to have a maximum fun and loyalty, we have decided to go on a mobile application. Then we use the blockchain technology because it provides us reliability, food traceability, also possibility for scaling up the solution through a platform. So let's see just the simple the consumer journey in the application. So basically, they join, obviously they download the application, they collect plastic bottles, then they drop them at the nearest collection center, take a picture, upload it in the application. The deposit point can be 1-way bin, 2-way bin, 3-way bin, recycling center, and so forth. They are crowdsourced by the user, validated by us, and once it's validated, it's visible for anybody. So we can start anywhere in the world. Anybody that download the app, if there are some collection points nearby, you can mark them and start the journey. In return of depositing the bottle, just one more point. Yes, in return of depositing the bottle, they earn our cryptocurrency, which is called the co-rewards. It's a utility token that can be exchanged from goods and services, and further down the road, even money. And then to the next slide. So on the top of that, we provide space for partners to be visible on our sustainable initiative by sponsoring in-app challenges that we call eco-missions that can be set in terms of duration, territories, participants. So it can be used for corporation engagement, employees engagement, or for consumer engagement. Then on each challenge, there are extra prices, so we give additional value to the gesture on the top of the tokens that they will earn for every single bottle that will drop. To the next slide. Then our eco reward, the cryptocurrency that we have released, is about 80 billion tokens that have been released. They can be redeemed against goods and services, and like I said, even money at a later stage. And then we will close the loop, giving the value to waste disconnected from the residual value of the material collected, and make consumer actor of and beneficial of that value creation. We proceed simply with vouchers. We are not in the e-commerce side. We are focusing on curbing the plastic pollution. but to leverage consumer interest, we give them the possibility to redeem easily against local vouchers or broader general dematerialized vouchers that you can claim from the platform. So in conclusion, our platform empowers all the actors of the circular economy to educate and incentivize consumers on pro-environmental behavior for a little free world. It is also a platform where we can plug eventually other applications that will want to reward another eco-friendly gesture, so that creates a suite of solutions for a more sustainable world. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, you can start your journey individually by downloading the application and start to make a positive impact. And obviously, we're looking at for our partners also to roll it out in different countries. It's purely easily scalable. We have released the application end of July, and we have users in already over 106 countries.
Thank you very much, Eric. Great. Yeah, this is a true example of not only expanded producer responsibility, but expanded consumer responsibility, right? And I'm not aware of any other app application at the moment in the market. And it is fun, so I also downloaded the app and I'm an active user, so I can also only recommend this. Are there any questions from the audience in the chat?
Yeah, there's one, Catherine.
Because I currently not see the chat, to be honest. But when you can read it, Eric, maybe you could straight away.
There is an approach that works well in Western countries, but how can be applicable to informal sector in Cambodia or to Cambodia in general, especially in rural areas? Digital infrastructure are lacking, and smartphones are by no way a daily companion. You're right. Obviously, we have to grow step by step. So we are in the space of scaling up with, and there's already a huge market for that on cities, on Western countries, but also on developing countries. You have a lot of large cities, and the phone is getting everywhere. You have more than 8 billion registration subscription on mobile phone. Nevertheless, we have on our roadmap some solutions that could utilize the Zeloop with intermediate system with aggregators that will be connected, but then hand over directly the reward to the people who don't have the benefit of having a phone. So it's clearly mapped out. Obviously, we want to make an impact, and then countries where or areas where the technology is not yet reachable, we can still evolve.
Any further questions in the chat? If that's not, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really thank you for your presentation. And my question is about how can you maintain your budget, or I mean like your financial, the finance, because you just give the app for free and people will get money back from doing some things that you have described. So may you share us about how can you get the benefit from that apps? Thanks.
Yes. Thank you very much for that very good question. So you're right. Our business model is actually a B2B business model, but going to consumer. So the flow to the consumer is free. You can download the application for free. You get your token for free, and you can exchange that also for free. The commission, for instance, the challenge are one of the examples where we monetize and where we finance ourselves, because it provides also space for companies to show their involvement on a sustainable initiative that actually matters, that is also highly visible. So you have many companies, with large CSR budget, and then they have to anyway decide where they're going to put that budget towards which initiative and so on. Working on the plastic pollution is something that, in terms of brand, is also very good. the commission shows, give them a link, a direct link to the consumer, and is how we generate of revenue. Obviously, we are also open to have a sponsor and so forth, but that is the primary source of revenue is from the corporate side. Then the platform also is another part where we can do white labels, so also to increase our impact. We have a discussion, for instance, to integrate other recyclables that are also a major threat on the planet, and basically any human product should never end in nature. It should remain in our hands, be used, reused, and recycled. And so we focus on the plastic because for our background and for our knowledge and so on. But there are many other recyclables that deserve to have the same attention. And the platform can provide that support, provide us obviously a revenue by exploiting the platform. But also providing the user a multiple possibility to earn a reward, because then they will share the same wallet across the platform in all the application, and they will earn the same cryptocurrency across the platform and the applications.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? If that's not the case, then I would like to conclude not only this session, but the whole Cambodian Waste Summit 2020. It was a very interesting journey the whole week. We had so many different topics, from waste to energy and to EPR, digitalization. We had one day with the United Nations. So we have seen very different aspects of the waste management. And what we can also clearly see is the high interest for the Cambodian market, in my opinion, because we had very high profile participants. Thank you again for all that are still in the call. Also today, very relevant solution providers. And this shows that they take the Cambodian market very serious. It's a good opportunity for international environmental service providers, but also for especially maybe the local Cambodian waste management community. And hopefully in the follow-up in the next weeks, we will be able to provide further matchmaking between the international companies and service providers and the national Cambodian service providers. And it would be great that we meet each other again, very latest in the next Waste Summit in Cambodia, but I hope, of course, before. And we will, all of you, contact again for a proper follow-up. Thank you from my side. It was really a pleasure. There was not 1 minute of boredom. It was very exciting. And thanks again, and have a nice weekend. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.